What's up, ladies and gentlemen, and those on the rich and beautiful spectrum between those two things? Today is Thursday, January 30th, and we are recording from beneath Lurie's Dome. As always, I'm joined by Chris Rabarge, and the podcast name is Chris.
The podcast name is Outdoor Cats.
Outdoor Cats. Nailed it. You got it. Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. The world's weird, but keep getting up every morning and chugging through it. And so, how are you?
Same. Just keeping on. Lot to talk about in Worcester this past month, especially. Business has been booming, but at the expense of other parts of my life. I've pretty much working dawn to dusk. But that's what I signed up for. So it's quite all right. We just got done.
You are kicking ass, man. Also, a thing I've said to you more than once is every week we think there's maybe not going to be enough to talk about, and every week there is literally too much to talk about. So
that was a ridiculous concern that we had, that we would have to fill some sort of dead air because the happenings keep happening. The things keep happening in the city. And I would say that the friction between the city we've historically been and the city we want to be is getting chafed and is rubbed as raw as ever right now. And which is the grossest way to tell you guys that we just concluded an interview with Josh Croke, who is one of the, I guess you'd say, main organizers of these series of demonstrations and rallies that have been happening at city council meetings since Kenny Merrill Carlson used a transphobic, bigoted slur against Tu Nguyen in such a way as to get us our own Fox News segment. It was a really illuminating talk. Josh is so much smarter than I am, and it was awesome to talk to them. See, I just fucking almost did it again.
Gay gulag, baby. That's going to make sense to you guys in a minute.
Straight to the gay gulags. I guess there's nothing else really to say about that. Instead of, we just got to roll the tape, I think.
Yeah, this is a good one, folks. So enjoy.
Today we have on Josh Croke, host of the Public Hearing Podcast and Queer for Cities, a student of the municipality in form and function, unlike myself, who can't even say the word, a queer icon, founder of Love Your Labels, board member of the Worcester Education Collaborative, on the Community Advisory Board for the Collaborative in Health Equity at UMass Chan Medical School, the best dressed person in any room, especially if that room is the city council chambers, the very room where, for the past few weeks, Croke has been in the shit, as we used to call it back in Nam. They don't fit neatly into the gender binary, and they do not suffer fools gladly. The pronouns are they, them, and if I fuck up on that at any point during this interview, take my stinky ass straight to the gay gulags. Josh, welcome to Outdoor Cats.
Well, thanks so much, Bill and Chris. I might need to take that intro and just copy paste it onto my LinkedIn. So appreciate being here.
Happy to send it along. Now, Josh, we're having you on because you've been very involved in the city council demonstrations of the past few weeks over bigotry and transphobia going on in City Hall. And I was wondering if you could catch up us and our listeners with sort of what happened on Tuesday night.
Yeah, so Tuesday we had our second rally. I'm real privileged to be working with a lot of great local organizers. Some I've been in relationship with for a long time. Some I've only really connected with over these issues over the past few weeks. And our response as, the queer and trans community and the allies that we have was really looking at how do we call more attention to city council as our elected body and hold them accountable for the shit that they can pull and sometimes get away with, and really try not to let that happen moving forward. So this past Tuesday, we had our second rally where the rally itself, outside of a press conference style thing that we did the week prior, was really focused on getting folks activated in community to stay in the work for the longer term. And I'm going to even consider the longer term our November election right now, because I think it can be, and I think as you may have seen, and you're dedicated and in the work very, very regularly, is that, folks can show up and get involved. And I'll myself, claim that as well at city council space. And then it's easy to kind of fall or drop off of that because the process of community engagement is horrible. The agenda can be confusing. The way that city council is held can make you want to pull your hair out. Fortunately, I don't have any, but so Tuesday, there are two, specific petitions that I wanted to, call attention to, that we had some, what I'm going to consider some nice wins on, both put forward by Noah Rose and have been drafted in support, by the organizers that are really active. And one was requesting the manager work with an LGBTQ plus coalition of folks to actually develop an actionable agenda to address issues facing the LGBTQ plus community, because we do have a lot of issues that impact queer and trans folks disproportionately, and that should be called to attention, in addition to all of the other folks who are marginalized, oppressed, and holding various identities in our community. The second was a direct funding request of asking the city council to request the city manager commit to establishing and annually allocating $500,000 to a queer and trans resilience fund, which I was surprised we only had one naysayer on the council. It was great. I think it was a great show of intention. We'll see what the actual follow through looks like. And that's where me personally, I'm going to be really dedicated to knocking on or pounding on the city manager's door to make this happen.
Right. I want to especially underscore that point you just made, which is so important, that the city council is accustomed to people getting angry, showing up like once, maybe twice to express that anger. Then they take some sort of nominal action that looks like action at the time. That action goes to the city manager's desk, where if the pressure isn't sustained, he basically has unilateral authority to just ignore it in perpetuity. So especially in the case of this, $500,000 fund, which would do a lot of good things and allow for a lot of good work, the task now becomes making sure the city manager knows that's a real priority, that wasn't a performative vote, that like we actually want to see that money.
Absolutely. Well, and we're seeing, I want to draw a parallel to the commissions that are formed and the challenges that they can even face with making recommendations to the manager. I think the Human Rights Commission just was featured in an article talking about how they feel that they are being either completely ignored or totally overlooked in the recommendations that they are making to the city.
Yeah, this is on our agenda to talk about, actually.
Yeah. And that's the question. So I'm going to be coming to the manager and be like, all right, so you were supposed to form this LGBTQ plus affairs commission, 2+ years ago? I think Councilor King put it forward in like 2020 or it was years ago. And 2 weeks ago, the manager said, well, we unfortunately haven't had enough applicants. And I'm like, well, as someone in the community who's pretty involved and active, I wasn't aware that you were struggling, because I have a long list of queer and trans folks who would love to participate in this way. And I want to ask that question of how do we hold the city manager and our city leadership accountable to listening to the work that is being done on those commissions?
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that was this week. It's all blurring together, but there was a speaker from the public who said that they put in an application and never heard boo about it. So it kind of you need to suspend disbelief a little bit to take the manager's statement on that at face value. I'm sure that commission could be filled up rather quickly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I just wanted to say I really I love all of this work and both of these council items that Noah put on. I'm thinking about I'm finding it really fun to frame in my head the funding ask as give us one police brutality settlement a year's worth of money for queer and trans resilience fund. I think that's a really fun way to think about it. And it's literally what it is. But yeah, also we talked about this a little bit last week, but just as folks are continuing to engage with, listening to us and more importantly, engaging in action in the community, I just really wanted to underscore what you were talking about with how important it is to sustain it, and also really underscore that a tactic that the city uses, council and the manager, a tactic that they use is to try to prevent that from happening. They're really counting on us to show up once or twice and then kind of let it go and hope that they do what they said they were going to do. And they won't if we don't push on them. We've talked about this. I've talked about this for years, but a tactic that interestingly they don't seem to be using as much right now because it backfired on them spectacularly recently. But this is literally why sometimes items get held under privilege if there's a bunch of people that show up to talk about something. A tactic that they've used for years is that someone on the council who doesn't want to deal with the angry crowd that's there will just hold it for a week and basically dare you to try to get everyone to come back next week. And it's hasn't been a bad bet for them in the past, but I think thanks to a lot of people right now, it is a bad bet for them. And I think they're freaked out, and that's good. That's right where we want them.
Yeah, I think, for better or for worse, the legacy and ancestry of queer and trans folks, especially trans folks of color, has been resistance to systems. So I think when you activate us as a group around issues, and I will speak to the national climate, I think is informing or is making folks feel, one, helpless in a lot of ways because the national state feels so massive that I think there is, if I'm to look to an optimistic through an optimistic lens of this is, I think folks are starting to look more closely at their own communities and how they can organize and hold each other in community and in solidarity and get activated to make change at the local level when things in the federal government right now seem like totally fucked.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. Because for somebody who's scared in this moment, there's sort of two roads. You can sort of submit to like a resignation and just wait it out, or you can find somewhere to take some sort of concrete action that yields tangible results. And there is no avenue at all for you to do that on the federal level. You're not going to be able to do anything about Donnie Deals, but you can do something about our city councilor who's running around calling their non-binary colleague it. Like, we can do something about that. That's a win that we can rack up.
And the fact that even the mayor of the city is asking what can we do about it as an elected body is concerning, right? Like,
right.
Even the city solicitor last night, or on Tuesday, spoke to like this question of, well, this is unprecedented. Technically, the city council doesn't have the ability to hire people. That's, an action of the city clerk, so what does the city council actually have within their power to do to hold this counselor accountable if these allegations are found to be true? And that is ridiculous. It's insane, I think, from folks on the ground that are literally asking. And sometimes you feel, because the process disenfranchises residents so much, I mean, even someone like myself, I'm like, am I asking a dumb question by saying, like, what does the city council actually have the ability to do around this?
It's actually the smartest question.
Yeah.
And I'm asking it to a lot of places where I would assume that information exists, and we're not getting clear answers.
Yeah, I mean, we had a really wild moment. You're referring to a part of the exchange right now, but where the meeting adjourns, and then there's a whole bunch of process stuff where where Attell wants the meeting to unadjourn, and the mayor very much doesn't want that, but Attell wins. And then, the city solicitor gets asked some pointed questions, and the responses are frankly shocking to me. One of which is that to hear the solicitor's office, the solicitor, for those who don't know, is the city attorney. This is the person who tells the city what the law is. And they may be right about this, or they may not be. I genuinely don't know, and we should get an answer. But one of the responses that we got was that it is the solicitor's opinion that city councilors do not have workplace protections as other city workers do. And that is wild. That is something we should know and that we should fix.
Yeah. I think that for listeners who aren't aware, we skipped past kind of an important thing. Tu and Attell both filed with the city's diversity, equity, and inclusion department or office complaints against Candy Merrill Carlson. The manager initially said that he would be investigating those complaints, and then it came out a couple days later, this was last week, that the manager can't investigate counselor on counselor complaints because he's their boss. But that there's another complaint that involves a city employee, which we don't know much about and honestly shouldn't know much about. I mean, there's a good reason why internal investigations like that are confidential. I mean, we wouldn't want to out that person in any way, but we know that it's related, and the manager is investigating that. But so Attell was like, can you just say that clearly on the record so we don't have to publish your emails on Instagram? So he said it. And then the mayor seemed to be completely shocked that the next follow-up question would be, all right, so mayor, chairman of this board, can you do something? And he just was like, I don't know. It seems to me that it's if the hiring for city council staff comes out of the clerk's office, and the clerk is the direct what's the word in corporate speak? The clerk reports directly to the city council. The city council could instruct the clerk to hire an outside investigator. Like, that seems like that would be fairly easy and legal to do.
And one of the things, and I am not a lawyer, and so do not quote me on this, but I think something that other councils have done in similar predicaments is they can take a vote as a council to recommend the resignation of a council member that has committed some type of offense that the public would deem fireable. And I don't believe the council has the ability or the authority to actually remove an elected official. However, the council could vote for a majority to say, hey, this is what City Councilor Mara Carlson should do based on the understanding of this body. She could choose to do that or not, but I think it isn't a worthless movement to try and bring the attention to what the actual other counselors feel should happen in this instance.
Yeah, I think that an on the record vote of confidence or no confidence in Candy Merrill Carlson, or like a vote that she considered resignation, would be like illuminating in a way that's really scary for someone like Joe Petty or Kate Toomey or any of the sort of old guard counselors that are now that now have the 6 votes they need to control most matters in the council. I think even just to get that vote into the public and have it fail would be illuminating, who votes for it and who doesn't.
Yeah, and not to even suggest a half measure down from that, but like there's ample precedent in lots of councils and governing bodies for censure, which is like an official reprimand that may or may not have a penalty assigned to it. But like we're just because it can feel crazy making, we're living in this sort of interstitial like hellscape where the council is basically a kind of admitting that everyone knows Candy did this, but also like not, and the council is apologizing as a body to the person or one person that it happened to, but no one is saying like you did this and like that needs to be on the record. And like that's the part that is wild. Like we're sort of like admitting the fact that this happened, but not like actually officially pointing out the person who did it and being like, you did this and there needs to be a consequence to you for doing it.
Right. And the allegation, as it sits as allegation without our ability to like really have like formal findings presented to the community, that I think there can be that fear of like, well, we can't say she did it based on hearsay, but we know, I think, well, I shouldn't say we know, but I believe that the folks who overheard that are not singular. And so, yes. I feel like that matters, and the statements that elected officials could make as it relates to that matters. And I think what we really have seen over the past few weeks is just a complete floundering of what an elected official's response should be in a situation like this. And I will, call some appreciation to, and surprisingly, Councilor Toomey apologized. She was like, you know what? I screwed up. I did this. I apologize. And so I think we also need to acknowledge when people make mistakes and own up to them in certain ways, which I think is really valuable. If I was on Candy's staff, the recommendations that I'd be making are not a single thing that is even remotely in the sphere of her response, right? Whether it's being like, help me learn, call me in to do better, I'm sorry. And I feel like a sorry in her instance is like, oh, if I say sorry, I'm admitting to this, and then that's going to open up a whole other slew of BS, right?
Right. And one note going off of that, and this is something I think is very important in the wider community of sort of the Worcester political discourse. There seems to be an unwillingness or an inability to draw a line between intentionally calling someone it and accidentally letting a she or a her fly. Now, Josh, you are a non-binary person. I'm wondering if you could speak to the difference there as you experience it or as you see it.
Absolutely. And yes, so I'm non-binary, assigned male at birth. I am bald with a beard and often wear high heels and a a nice palette of eyeshadow, which confuses people, but I often am, automatically referred to as he in a lot of spaces unless I'm very intentional about claiming my pronouns in space. And even when I do, it's people mess up all the time. As non-binary folks, and not to speak for all of us, but I think a very common experience is being misgendered intentionally or unintentionally. And we know, like we understand and we can feel when people do not want to respect our identities as we claim them. And I would say sometimes it can go down to the nuanced level of there are people in professional spaces that I know will refuse to use my pronouns, so they will always use my name, which I guess is respectful in that way of like, all right, I'm going to Josh you constantly instead of referring to your pronouns, because I don't want to actually go down that road of like acknowledging that I would use they, them to actually refer to you. In the instance of someone being called it, and there is a long and racist and transphobic and like truly oppressive lineage of othering people to non-human by referring to them as it. And so I think it should just be generally known in every household that if you call your, this kid at school that you don't like it, that is incredibly offensive and we need to talk to you about this. And I appreciate folks who spoke up at City Hall in public comment who were like, because there were multiple who were like, I have these conversations with my 7-year-old, and if they can get it and they can understand how to respond, like you all should,
right?
Yeah, not to take you off track, but I can't stop thinking about the bus driver who testified at council. Bill, maybe we can clip a little.
Oh, we got to clip the bus driver in.
Holy shit, man. A bus driver who was like, I drive a bus in the Worcester Public Schools, and I want to tell you how I would respond if you were a child who did this on my bus. And I want to tell you how much worse you're doing at responding to it than that.
I'm actually a school bus driver, and everybody is loved and included and protected in my bus. I'm looking at this side and at you. I'd have words for you in my bus, because you would deflect and say it's this person's fault that I offended them. And anybody who would call somebody it in my bus, that's dehumanizing. And I think anybody who would call somebody it, you're making yourself look less human.
Anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt, Josh.
Yeah, no, that's 100% correct. And the fact that people are allowing in the talk space to be like, oh, well, she might have said it by accident is like so just wrong. Like, I think people need to be redirected. And that's why when folks have been talking to me about this in community, I'm like, I want to be very, very clear with the difference of being misgendered and being dehumanized. And like being misgendered ad nauseum by the same person with cruel intention can be dehumanizing and is dehumanizing. And there are also people who are like, whoops, I said she instead of them. You know, we had an incredible example of that in Councilor King's address during our press conference, right?
Right.
He let the wrong pronoun slip, and he stood up back up in front of that crowd and said, I want to take responsibility for screwing up. I want to own that, and then I would like to move on. And that is an appropriate
Simple as that.
response. Exactly.
It's really not hard. Like I've done it. You just be a normal adult about it. Say sorry.
Yeah. I want to take just a second on this exact topic for if we can. And I'm going to guess that most people that are listening to this right now are familiar with pronoun usage and like the kind of like honest mistake versus like dehumanizing that you're talking about. But let's not assume everyone is. I also have been in like through the course of my work professionally and in the community and stuff. I've been in pronoun usage or pronoun stating environments a lot. I think probably more than the average person. And I have also screwed this up before. And Josh, you know, what is the response? What is the very like a simplification of the response that you're looking for as a non-binary person when someone in passing accidentally misgenders you? Because I would actually like not me to answer that question.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate the question. And I think it can depend on level of relationship, but often it really simply is, oh, I'm sorry, I know you use they, them pronouns. I'm going to do better. That's it. It's like a whoops, I'm going to try harder. And I push some folks, you know, folks that I'm maybe in deeper relationship with or in community spaces with more regularly that continue to do it. You know, sometimes it comes to a point where it's like, all right, we got to have a little bit of a conversation because the trying isn't working. So we got to do something else. Right. And I think I don't always necessarily assume good intent from folks because as queer and trans folks, really anyone who is othered and marginalized, we are used to folks coming at us and we can be on that defensive a little bit. But being in space where I'm like regularly having to say, oh, you know, I use they, them pronouns. Maybe you missed it at the beginning of the meeting. They're on my Zoom name. They're in the chat. You know, there are opportunities, but it really does take folks intentional practice, especially if you don't know a lot of folks that use they, them pronouns or other neo pronouns. Like you have to like actually do the work. I've done it. You know, I will totally claim that I have people in my life who I have assumed to use a certain set of pronouns and then they've had to correct me. And I have to like reprogram my own brain a little bit, especially like if you know someone for 25 years and they've gone using a certain set of pronouns and then those change, you have to do some reprogramming. But the thoughtfulness and the intention and the like actual, you know, setting time aside to really be thinking about it shows that you love and care for a person. And I think that's what it comes down to, with respect.
I just really wanted to get that out there and to finish my thought, just like the main reason why is because an experience that I have had as a binary cis straight man who has been, people know that I've been in like, you know, let's say like more you know, spaces that were quicker to move to acknowledging and being really intentional about people's pronouns. I've had people ask me on the down low, like, what should I do if this happens? Or like, I've heard that like someone will like, you know, flip out at you for if you misgender them and stuff. And I've had to tell people like that has never happened to me. And I've never seen it happen to someone else. Like what you just described is exactly what I've seen happen. And so just for anyone who's like a little bit newer to this, it's not scary. Don't let it be scary. Just try to be good about it and like be mindful about it. That's all you have to do. And if someone corrects you, just acknowledge it and do better.
And in the instances where there may be frustration or upset on the side of the person who is being misgendered, I'd like to tell folks to consider empathy in that it is not just the singular instance of you misgendering them that has led to that level of upset. It is the compounded nature of living in a society that constantly misgenders us or others us. And I wrote about this recently in a Worcester Business Journal article that I wrote that talks about how like I am misgendered almost every other day, if not daily, in some of my work life. And we have to do this like mental calculus to say, all right, I'm going to actually take the time and correct someone, call them in. But that might distract from the conversation that you're having about something that's critical, to community need in a different way. And so like we have to come into spaces recognizing like queer and trans folks and folks who are othered, this is not an uncommon experience for folks of color, for folks, who are disabled, et cetera, have to be like, all right, what am I going to accept today in order to get the other work done?
Yeah.
Right. Chris, I like that you took a step back there and we kind of laid that out for people who might be unsure. And Josh, I can't stop thinking about the observation about you being joshed instead of they'd by someone. And like there might be this thing, like, especially among men, where it's like analogous to like accidentally ordering the kind of cocktail at a bar that gives you a skinny stand glass as opposed to like a rocks glass, where it's like inherently insults your manhood to have to use they, them pronouns to address somebody. And you know what? Stop being a baby. Take your diaper off. It's fine. It doesn't make you any less of a man. And it seems to me that like if you just approach people with good intentions and love in your heart for the world, that you can make a mistake on a pronoun and it's not that hard to say sorry and do better. But this is where we come to the crucial distinction between she and it. Josh, in your experience, has anyone ever accidentally called you it?
No.
Could you foresee or envision a way in which a person could accidentally use it as opposed to a human pronoun to describe somebody?
Absolutely not.
So what are we left with? What is somebody doing when they use it to describe a non-binary person?
They are trying to remove their humanity and minimize their value as a person of equal standing, especially when you're talking about a colleague who holds a similar title to you. Right.
So I don't have Merriam-Webster in front of me right now, but that seems to kind of neatly fit the definition of a slur. And this is a point that I really want to stress as much as I can. I've already written about it, so sorry if I'm repeating myself to readers, but it's very useful to consider that, race and what is a racial slur is very well established in 2024. Gender is not so well established in the general sort of, probably far right to center left spectrum. It is new and uncomfortable terrain for a lot of people. So what is a slur? You could give people some credit for or some leeway for like not understanding initially that it's a slur. But just think about if Candy had used a racial epithet to describe two.
Absolutely. And I'll, use a word that I, as a queer, AMAB, non-binary person, feel I have the right to say. It can be contested. But if I were in an elected position and a counselor called me a faggot, that would matter. And people would know instantly that it mattered, right?
Right.
And the fact that I don't know if it's because it's 2 letters. I don't know what's so hard for folks, but that is a slur.
Yeah. And, it's just been, I'm glad that we're having you on to talk about this, because it's been extremely frustrating to have that be downplayed and have this story be like headline in the Telegram is like misgenderings. And it's like, it's really not that. It's like, there is something much worse going on here that deserves the public outcry it's getting.
Correct.
There are 2 things that have happened here. There is misgendering, which happened with other counselors, and there is the use of a dehumanizing slur, which we can, I think, credibly say, and Bill and I already have, say that we feel very confident based on the information that we have, that one counselor, Candy Merrill Carlson, did exactly that more than once.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's why I feel like no reservations about just being like, she said it. But that I'm not going to ask anybody else to do that. But I feel confident just being like, okay, we can work on the level of this being a stellar fact.
Yeah, not to redirect because I think it's connected. So one of the other things that the organizers are really doing and standing up to say is we have an election in November, and the residents of this city have a way to hold people accountable, and that is by unseating them and placing new folks in those seats that better reflect our values, our morals, our the needs that we have of members of the Worcester community. And that is my hope, is that we are, on Tuesday we had multiple folks register to vote. We brought voter registration papers, and we said this is so critical. And we know, and you've talked about this, we need way more people in this city to turn up to vote. And I recognize and understand why people are just completely nonplussed by the city council, and they don't feel like they're part of their day to day, because we have a weak mayoral system, and that's not just referring to the current mayor. It's just saying we have a weak system in place where he does not have the power or authority to do all the things that someone assumes the mayor typically does. And so I personally have a few charges to myself over the next year. One is voter registration and voter activation, getting people out to vote. Because I think, similar to the country, if we got everybody to vote out, if it was required to vote, I think we would have a very, 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 very different looking council here in Worcester. And my second kind of charge is charter change. We need to reevaluate what our system of governance looks like. I think we should have full-time counselors. I think we should move to a strong mayor system so that we can hold the person that is responsible for the day-to-day operations of the city accountable in that same way. So those are 2 things that I'm very passionate about right now.
That's awesome. I take those one at a time. The first one, voter turnout. I think I need to work with a data person to really do the math on what it would take. But the number that I've been working with is 1,000 new voters in this city really would change the equation. And I think it wasn't this week, but it was last week. There was a speaker who just plainly said, "You're in these seats because of low voter turnout." And I thought that was so awesome, because we haven't seen a municipal election get more than 20% since the freaking 60s. I'm going to go out on a limb and say,
I've looked at the numbers weirdly. If anyone else ever wants to look at them, they are in the beginning of the city charter. There's 60 pages of the dorkiest data, but yes, the numbers are there,
which
and
we
I
love.
have studied them. Yes, which we love. And voter turnout in the city peaked in about 1955, and it's been declining ever since.
Right.
And it really started to fall off in 1955, by the way, was a year that we did charter change, and 85 was the year we did our last big charter change. And it plummets after 85. So thank you for making the connection between those two things, because they are connected.
For sure. It's long argued. It's a system as currently stands that disincentivizes and punishes public participation. And you got to imagine that that's not completely by accident. I won't make you say that, Josh, but I'm saying that I don't think that that's completely by accident. But the national moment right now, especially for the queer community, the trans community, I mean, this is really fundamentally scary shit in a new way. Like, for a lot of people, like the slew of executive orders that came out on day one, like DEI and trans shit was top of the ticket, like first order of business stuff that we got to take care of. And I could not imagine being a person that is like directly targeted by that sort of widely publicized and facilitated public assault at the federal level. We need local officials who are going to stick up for our people. Right?
That's exactly it. And so the fact that the current president in his inauguration speech felt that it was important to take up talk space by saying that the federal government will only recognize two genders is wild. In the fact that there are so many issues that are facing our nation, and he takes up a minute of what is like a 45-minute speech to dehumanize, other, and separate people is incredibly, incredibly scary. And it is a tactic of fascism. I'm just going to say that, right? To find a population of people, because his whole, I will loudly proclaim, I think he's also racist. And in the time that we exist in, he can't say he's racist. So he's like, we are a colorblind nation. So he's focusing on this colorblindness, which is total bullshit. But then he's saying, okay, so who else can we other and separate based on people's lack of access or connectivity to people? Because I think to this day, over 60% of Americans still say they do not know a trans person. And when you do not know somebody, you can have an idea of who they are constructed for you. And that is exactly what the federal government is doing right now. They are constructing an identity for trans people that is trying to make folks scared that your child is going to play in a sports league with a trans kid, specifically a trans girl, which is also an important thing to focus on. The administration is targeting and attacking trans women more than they are trans men, which is sexist, it's misogynist, it's all of those things. And so to bring this back to the local level, Worcester is in Massachusetts, and I get emails. I run an organization, Love Your Labels, that supports LGBTQ plus people in our community. I get emails from people across the country, not just one, multiple, of people saying, we are trying to move to Massachusetts. We are trying to flee to Massachusetts as trans people because we feel that it is a safer place for us to be. And when we're dealing with this type of issue in Worcester, Massachusetts, the second largest city in New England, where people are looking to move to, what does that say about the state of our nation when Massachusetts and Worcester are like, oh, maybe it's not as accepting and welcoming as we make it up to be?
Josh, that's extremely well said. And that is what makes this so frustrating and embarrassing, that the response from Candy and from Joe initially to two coming out and saying, I've been called it. Their response was antagonistic and created a media controversy that in this moment exploded all the way to frickin' Fox News because of how resonant it was with this anti-trans sentiment nationally and the sort of anti-trans moral panic. And that is a great, it's an incredible stain on the reputation of this city in a way that I don't think Joe Petty or Candice or any of our old guard counselors understand just how bad that was. and how the role they played in advancing that. I just got to say it again because it makes me so fucking angry.
Yes, I would love to see, if we have any creative writers out there listening, I would love to see folks write a few alternate universe versions of where we could have gone from the moment two made their statement, right? Like what could the
that's
responses have been from this community and from our elected leadership, and how could that have set a wildly different dialogue on the national level, so that if folks on Fox News were watching and are like, haha, like look at Worcester, people look in more deeply to the story and they said, oh wow, actually the city council spoke up, every elected official condemned the use of the word it, and the council voted to request the removal of, or the resignation of the councilor who said that. And the city said, we are going to allocate funding to resource organization. And I'm glad that we have that as a question mark right now. Well, I'll consider it a question mark, but there is
that's a win.
That's a win. But yeah, I'd love to see people's creative interpretations of alt universes of where we could be right now.
That would be amazing. Folks write in. Yeah. And I mean, every day, including today, like this is not a permanent, it doesn't have to be a permanent stain on Worcester. Every day, including today or tomorrow, the people in power in this city could correct it, and they should, and we should keep demanding that they do. I know I've lived in Worcester for a little over 20 years now, and I've had several queer friends tell me specifically that a thing that they noticed coming to Worcester, or that like influenced the way that they thought about visiting Worcester or coming here to live, is the fact that right in the middle of downtown, right off the highway, visible from the highway, there is a massive pride flag, and what that made them feel. And let's not get into like what building that's attached to, and other complicated things.
We don't need to play inside baseball on that.
Yes, let's not. But it is there, and it is a very people who it matters to have told me that it's a very important and powerful symbol to them. And this is, there could not be more the opposite of that than what this is, what this display from leadership in city council and frankly the city manager has been.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I would tie to the need for voter activation is also giving folks candidates they're excited to vote for.
Yes.
And I think that is super crucial. I hope Councillor Nguyen runs again. I hope Councillor King runs again. I hope Councillor Hajiai runs again. Everyone else, I'm lifting arms for people who are listening.
Yeah, that's the sound of Josh lifting his arm. Hey, look, I just did it.
Yeah. And we have some.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
We have some candidates that have announced their intentions to run for seats that we now know are going to be open in District 1 and District 3. And the candidates I've seen so far are not inspiring or people that I want to see on city council, or in Tony Economou's case, back on city council. So this is a thing that I really hope people are thinking about and talking to other people about, because we need good candidates and we need them like immediately, so that they can have a good and like a run with a chance to win.
So going off of that, Josh, say there is a member of the overall, I know I'm generalizing, queer community in Worcester who is seeing all this happening and is super motivated to give it a shot, but doesn't really know what the proper steps are. What advice would you have for that person?
One, I would say reach into community. I'm someone who tries to be accessible to folks, and I am also on the lookout for folks who are interested in running. And I think in addition to finding individual candidates, we need to recognize campaigns are about a multiple people supporting that. You know, you
Mhm.
need your kitchen cabinet, as they call it, and folks in community to be supportive. You need folks door knocking. So reach out to organizations that are queer led, like Love Your Labels, and we will work as hard as we can to find the resources and support for candidates. I think the other thing is, even if, and I've been in this position myself, even if you have a remote inclination that you would consider running, let folks know, like talk to your community about that, because there are folks like myself who are, I don't want to say scrambling yet, but who are scrambling to say, okay, who is running for these
Yeah.
seats? You
Right.
know, who are we able to help lift up? Who might even be considering it without having to like draw the map out and be like, okay, I know this person lives over there. Could we convince them to do this? You know,
Right,
I
right,
think
right.
that is really critical.
Yeah. I would just say feel free to reach out to me. I'm actually having a conversation with somebody who's interested in running for a seat this afternoon. And me and Chris, the Outdoor Cats team, we're available. We want to hear from folks who are considering it. And we've been around the block a time or two and can at least get you pointed in the right direction. So don't hesitate to reach out.
And if you don't know how to run a city council campaign, that's okay, and that's normal. That means you're not a freak like we are. But you don't have to come to the interest with all of that knowledge. There are people in the city who have decades of that knowledge, and we can all point you in the direction of those people. And I will say for myself, I would really, really love to be doing that.
Yeah.
Please reach out.
And not to share all my great ideas, but maybe this is something we could collaborate on. I've been thinking about, through my Queer for Cities hat, which is a newer and kind of an emerging project, but I've been thinking about doing mock city council.
Oh my God, you are preaching to the choir.
A topic that Bill and I
have drunkenly suggested this to you.
Oh my God. I was just going to say, this is a topic that Bill and I have specifically discussed on multiple occasions. So yes, please say more.
Yeah. I think like the fact that it is overwhelming, and folks, even to speak at public comment, can be like, okay, wait, what's going to happen? What's the order of the agenda? What do these words mean? Like, what is this? It's like, let's get people together and do it in a space where it can be lighter and not feel as like intense, and practice what it might be like to be in that environment, and especially be in that environment on a regular basis, you know, because I try and stay in it, but like every Tuesday night, dude, you know, it is hard to want to, you know, do that. And I think we can truly transform how we hold government in Worcester, which will require charter change, but a great start would be electing better candidates to those seats. But yeah, get people in there acting as city councilors, get people in there as the public. Think about different ways in which we could change and transform public engagement so it doesn't feel like a belittling thanks for asking while someone scrolls through their phone under a little paper tent, you know, like
right.
The engagement process is broken. And we've been just seeing that more and more with like the mayor putting forward, like, should we still allow for virtual participation? And like those types of things are literally, it's like, we live in fucking 2025, dude. You know, like Zoom is everything, and it does create an incredible amount of access, which unfortunately for you folks, you know, on the city council, like you have to listen to more people, but that's your job.
Literally your job. So I have a scenario in my head, and I won't sketch out the entire thing here, but I will just say, the psychic damage that would be caused to the current political class to have a more popular, well-attended, and fun version of exactly what they're doing with only a little bit less power because they don't really have that much power as the charter is written right now. But if that was getting more views, people were talking about it more. The ideas coming out of that were infusing the public discourse more than the ideas about pickleball and why bike lanes are bad that are coming out of the current city council. Like,
hey,
that's embarrassing.
An unelected but more representative government, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is
Let's
like
get it going.
not a
People's
zero.
Council.
Yeah, it's not a zero-sum game. Also, like I want to disabuse people immediately from maybe the notion that like, oh, well, you know, why would we do that instead of like show up when they're having important votes on things? No, we can do both. But if you don't follow city council every week, I assure you, there are a lot of weeks where city council doesn't do shit that's important. They like vote on curb cuts and, you know, talk about ball courts and stuff. Like, we can do our own. We're not missing anything if we're not there. I promise you.
Yeah. And the other thing that I'll just say quickly, because it connects to this, like, I want people to be excited that they live in Worcester, because Worcester is doing transformative things as a municipality. I think we have a lot of people that are doing incredible work, that are residents, that run organizations, etc. But there are ways to get people excited about being involved in local government. I mean, I work in urban planning and community development. I've traveled down to, there's an annual conference called the Smart Cities Expo that a few years I went down, and I'm meeting and talking with mayors from all over the country about things that they're doing in their cities that are getting folks excited. You know, there were mayors deploying ARPA dollars to provide every resident who wanted access to virtual therapy, right? Like, there are really amazing things that people are doing. And like, it is a strong and active municipal government, elected leadership that is doing stuff like that. And I think we just never really look to Worcester's elected officials as the people who are innovating and making it, like, making the second largest city in New England actually be paid attention to on a like local, statewide, and national scale. And I think we have the opportunity to do it. Just like, we got to get like all the things that we were saying. We need to.
Well, I mean, that's what a mock city council or like a people's assembly or something could do, is it could bring in and motivate. Like, we have huge brain trust in this city. We have a ton of smart people. They have just been told repeatedly for as long as they've lived here, if they've tried to get involved in municipal government, to fuck off, right? Like, that is really the attitude overall that City Hall takes, especially to smart people, I would say. The defining energy of the city, it is just the statement, what, you think you're better than me? Right? Like that runs deep. So when people hear somebody smart come around talking about smart things that could happen, they're approaching that, they got their backs up. They're like, whoa.
It's a threat.
What, you think you're better than me? You know, and that kind of thinking needs to be expelled, banished. That's loser shit, you know?
Yes.
That's total loser shit.
And I hope, and if any elected officials are listening, I hope folks can recognize there is grace and humility in stepping aside and allowing space for new voices to be represented. And there is a way to do that that does not require you to just decline in your popularity until you're voted out. You know,
right.
It's like, why not just say like, hey, and personally, like, our system is so screwed up. Like, it is not a particularly incentivized job. Like, they're not making all of these like millions of dollars by sitting on Worcester City Council. You know, I'm intrigued by the motivation of some of the folks that are still there, one, to be there for as long as they have been. And I think this is an invitation to some of those folks, and like, go George Russell for like saying, you know, I'm stepping off, I'm making space. And like, I'd love to see that modeled by other people, because, you know, with incumbents, especially with like a seat like the mayor, people are like, is it worth it? Is it worth it? We know what the outcome is going to be. Unless we have someone who is really energizing and activating in this present moment in our city, I don't think seats like that are going to change.
Yeah, well said. Well said. That's what we need. And I will just say that the thing that we overlook a lot, I think, is like levity and like a party atmosphere and the social element of political engagement. It doesn't always have to be about the knockdown, drag out fight. Sometimes it's about the cool little get together that happens at 5:30 at City Hall, where you get to talk to your friends. Like that's almost just as important, and that's something that I wanted to bring up at the beginning of this interview. But like 5:30 on Tuesday, I get up there to City Hall, and it's just kind of like a party vibe. Like we got a boombox going, we got people dressed up in fun costumes, everyone's talking to each other. You interrupt all of that briefly to just say, please keep talking to each other, talk to someone you don't know, and it was spirits were high, and the energy in the room was infectious and light, and it wasn't like scary or hostile. And I feel like people are drawn to like spaces with that kind of energy. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate the approach you took with that.
Thank you. I just posted something recently that I saw. It was a quote from an organizer, and I'm blanking on their name, but it was an organizer that was involved in like ACT UP and like the protesting AIDS and the HIV epidemic, and which was something that devastated the queer community. And he said, during the day or in the morning we go to work, in the evening we rally and we resist, and at night we dance.
Yes.
And that is the thing that keeps us going. It is. And I think in this moment, and I've been saying this to a lot of my co-organizers and folks in community, like joy, queer joy, just community joy is so important. And it can often be something that we take for granted or say like, no, we don't have time for that because we have to do this thing or this other thing, or, really burn the candle at both ends. But we need to create intentional space for joy. And that can also be part of the work. And it is part of the work.
There is, to my knowledge, and I know a little bit about this, there is no sustained, successful movement organizing that has happened in history. I will say pretty confidently American history, that has not had anywhere in it an element of fun and joy. It is imperative to keep your spirits up. And without it, if there is nothing fun and nothing joyful, people will leave. Because why wouldn't you? Like, no one wants to suffer all the time. Sometimes struggle and suffering is a part of the journey, but it can't be the entire thing, or we will never win.
Right. Well, Josh, at night we dance. One night we made dance on the gravestone of Candy Merrill Carlson's political life, right? Huh? I mean, I think that's a pretty...
District 2.
Rob Bellotta, District 2. Let's go, baby. I think that's a pretty good place to end it. I know you got to get going. Is there anything that you'd like to talk about quickly before we let you go?
No, I really appreciate the time to talk, and look forward to more to come, like a mock council.
Let's do it. I'm seriously so jazzed on the idea. We'll talk about it.
We can dance at mock council.
Yeah.
Yes.
mock council real rave. How about that?
It's on the agenda. It's on the agenda.
Yeah. All right. Josh, thank you so much. And we will be talking about that soon.
Awesome.
Thanks for your time, Josh.
Yeah.
I'm feeling a little bit better after that interview than I was before that interview, I gotta say.
Yeah.
We simply must do the People's City Council. It is insane that they brought that up at the end. It is
Yes.
like because we weren't bullshitting. Like we've had. In fact, if I went through my Google Docs, I might find like a hastily typed out screed about how much damage like a regular People's Assembly style meeting where we sort of mirror the city council agenda, but do it our own way and make it fun. Like how much real damage that could start to do. Especially because we already have the infrastructure to do a live broadcast with the Twitch. So,
Yeah. I mean, it's just got to happen. Even if it can't happen every week, whatever, it's got to happen more than 0 times, and it should be at least a periodic, regular thing. And I'm so happy that someone who frankly has their shit together more than either of us do is also thinking about it.
Insane transition that I just thought of. Right. We didn't really talk about it too much because there were more interesting things to talk about with Josh. But Mo Bergman pulled his one weird trick where he's like, I would vote for this. I would vote for this item if not for this one specific word that I take issue with because I think it puts us out of compliance with the law.
It's worded in a way that some of us have learned over time to try to avoid, commit to. So my motion would be just to simply say for the manager to consider working on both 8I and 8J.
Now, he said that on Tuesday in 2025. I am going to pull up an article right now. In my post for this week that I have half written. An archive story from the Telegram in 2015. Headline of this story: Worcester scuttles idea of civilian review board for police. Scroll down, end of article. Councilor at Large Morris A. Bergman argued that it is not appropriate for City Council to ask the city manager to consider establishing a civilian police review board because it would constitute a change in working conditions for police officers. As a result, he said having such a board would require approval of the appropriate police unions. Quote,
Yes.
whether you support or don't support the items, we are going down a road we can't go down. It would constitute a change in work conditions for the police department. The rank and file would have to agree to allow such a change in their working conditions. Legally, we can't do this. And that's the line I was getting to at the end. Legally, we can't do this. I should go and get the clip of Bergman from Tuesday, and I guarantee you he says legally, comma, we can't do this at one point during his thing. So there we have the same guy pulling his same one weird trick when another city councilor 10 years ago tried to implement what the city manager is now suggesting is the solution for our beleaguered and corrupt and frankly, folks, evil police department. And we can pretty much be, if I could put money on it, I would, that when Civilian Review Board comes back up, whenever Eric Batista announces it, Mo Bergman's going to make the same argument. He's going to do his little lawfare again.
I will say, I don't know what kind of attorney Mo Bergman is. That's not information that is front of my head. There are two kinds of attorney that I am pretty fucking sure he's not. One of them is a city solicitor. His favorite volunteer job being volunteer city solicitor in real time in the council, while the actual city solicitor is sitting right there. And the other kind of attorney that I'm pretty sure he is not is a labor attorney. And change in working conditions is labor terminology. It is a thing that is you have some basic rights. that are like foundational rights when you're in a union that you can bargain over. It is pay, benefits, and working conditions. And a change in any of those three things constitutes a bargaining position that you can negotiate on. Mo Bergman is not that kind of attorney. And a police officer, I'm sure, told him that, and that's the only reason that he even knows it. But yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think his legal opinion on this is interesting and instructive in ways that have nothing to do with it being correct or incorrect.
Right. It's an example. It's an example and a pattern of him pulling the same one weird trick to basically just throw a wrench in the works and to stop the city from exploring a new idea. In this same article, this is crazy. And we're getting to somewhere relevant here because this all has to do with the Human Rights Commission, which we want to talk about. Joe Petty also shows his one weird trick for throwing a wrench in the works. And I'll read from this 2015 article by Nick Kotsopoulos. Mayor Joseph M. Petty echoed the sentiment, saying the city has worked very hard in recent months to bring people together. He said the city already has a system in place when dealing with police complaints, with the Human Rights Commission, the Coalition on Bias and Hate, and the City Council Public Safety Committee playing key roles as part of that process. Quote,
where have we heard about that committee before?
Right. But the kicker quote here, I think we're already on the right track, says Petty. All right. So 10 years ago, Petty says, I think we're already on the right track, which is his favorite thing to say about anything. You know, I think we're doing a good job here. You know, I think we're doing the best we can given the circumstances. And, you know, I think that if we just stay the course, you know, it's all going to be all right. That's the way that Joe Petty, that's his one weird trick to throw a wrench in progress, to poo-poo new ideas.
I would say he has two weird tricks, which is why he's the mayor. That is one of his weird tricks. And his other weird trick is to just say, I don't know.
Yeah.
Geez, I don't know. Can we do that?
Yeah. His third weird trick, it could only be described as just inaudible.
Unable to be transcribed.
He just calls an inaudible, and everyone gets so lost that the productive conversation can't happen. But anyway, this is all to say that 10 years ago, we were saying, all right, we need to do something about this police department with no oversight mechanism. Petty lists three things here that comprise the city's oversight mechanism of the police department as he sees it. The Human Rights Commission, the Coalition on Bias and Hate, which I'm pretty sure does not exist anymore. I don't know what that is.
Correct.
And the City Council Public Safety Committee, subcommittee, chaired by Kate Toomey. In the 9 years, actually since this article was written, 9 years she's been on the committee, not one police accountability item. Not one. This Week in Worcester went through the laborsome work of proving that, and I trust them because that's not how she sees the job. The Human Rights Commission has been, over the past couple of years, trying to step up to fill the role of what the Human Rights Commission should be. They've been trying to get subpoena power, investigatory power, and real oversight over the police department. Many of the things that they identified as issues ended up in the DOJ's report on Worcester, like things that they've identified for years and years, especially the fact that the WPD doesn't keep racial data on arrests and traffic stops. Or I don't know if it's arrests and traffic stops and something else. So the Human Rights Commission this week had a meeting where they expressed major frustration and sent a flurry of motions to the city manager to be like, hey, can you please work with us? And the city manager probably won't respond to those. Like, he hasn't responded to like everything the Human Rights Commission has been putting in front of him for the past couple, I would say for the better part of the past year.
And indeed has not, after repeated requests by the Human Rights Commission for him to responded at all.
Right.
There's a couple real good quick quotes here, if I can indulge. Longtime Commissioner Jacqueline Yang, she is very cool and has worked on this stuff for a really long time, said Batista's silence is disrespectful to commissioners and the public. She questioned whether the body's work had been rendered, quote, performative. Commissioner Rob Bellata said it was, quote, increasingly frustrating to see again and again any questions we have, any recommendations just fell flat.
Right. Now, this is the guy who is in charge of putting together a proposal for a civilian review board. Chris, does this inspire any confidence in you that the proposal for a civilian review board will be a good one?
No. And I can talk about this at more length sometime when we have more time to do that. But a thing that I have done in my past is actually studied pretty extensively civilian review boards and what are the devils in the details of civilian review boards that make them effective or ineffective. And some of those things are subpoena power, who appoints them. There are a number of different things, but a bad civilian review board, I would strenuously argue and have publicly argued before, is worse than no civilian review board.
Right.
Because what it constitutes is a rubber stamp on police misconduct. And that's not what we want to do. And I don't know that we will ever even get to the point where we're discussing the devils in the details with this proposal, but it is really important. And I don't have a lot of confidence in Eric Batista to give us a really useful civilian review board at all.
Yeah. I was going back, so I was writing last night what I thought was going to be a short section on the HRC. And I think this week it still has to be a short section, but I did a lot of digging in the archives going back to 1971 when the Civilian Review Board was first established in Worcester, and the context in which it was established, and then the pushback it got from the police unions, and then the defanging of its powers. And that appeared to be, at like a quick glance through the archive, to be like a vicious repeating cycle. The Civilian Review Board started as something with real subpoena power, like that could take people to court in Worcester, and has eventually been, over the past 50 years, reduced to like really begging the city manager to take it seriously. Like, it's insulting. It's deeply insulting. And like,
do you mean the Human Rights Commission?
Yes. For that entire thing, I was talking about the Human Rights Commission. I've freaking I'm stupid. Yes, the Human Rights Commission was established in 1971 and has been continually defanged, somewhat cyclical seeming, from the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s up until the present. It used to be, and it was established as like a real accountability measure for when police overstep the bounds of their power and when they abuse their power. And they used to be effective, and they were so effective that the city made them ineffective. Which really, we got to do a whole episode on that. And I think I actually have to sit down and write like a comprehensive history of the Human Rights Commission in Worcester, because I was reading stuff from the 70s where I was like, this could have been written yesterday, right?
Yeah.
The more things change, the more they stay the same. But
yeah, I really think it would be cool to do a whole episode on for a few reasons, and one of them is that that you've identified the problem, but also the problem is bigger than the Human Rights Commission. It is actually very endemic across boards and commissions in the city of Worcester. So we have a bunch of citizen volunteer boards and commissions, and we should take a look at a list of them, and they are classified in 3 different ways. Don't ask me to remember what they all are, but I think it's executive, something, and advisory. That's the important here. The Human Rights Commission and a shocking amount, or maybe not shocking amount of the rest of the boards and commissions in the city, where we ask people to do work for free and go to public meetings and do public work, are advisory commissions. And what that means is that the city manager has 0 statutory obligation to listen to them or do anything that they say. It is advisory. They are just giving him some advice.
Right.
And when he doesn't like the advice, this is what happens.
Yep. And we saw it. We saw that exact thing happen with the Cable Commission, who was like, break the contract with Spectrum. Spectrum fucking stinks. And Eric Batista was like, I hear you, but no. And they were like, okay, well, we're just all going to resign. Another classic case of being punished for caring.
Also an advisory commission, and we can talk about this more on a full thing about it sometime. But I used to be on the Citizen Advisory Council, and what that is it's the body of people that does like the initial vetting for people who want to be on these boards and commissions. And a constant running joke we had that was actually not funny was we can't ever get anyone for the Cable Commission. No one wants to be on the Cable Commission. And one reason why is that the Cable Commission doesn't really have much to do, or doesn't think it does, for most of the time until the contract comes up. And the other reason is that nobody listens to them. Right. So they went and did all this work, and then they were just like, yeah, no, thanks. And yeah, everybody resigned, which is exactly what they should have done. Good for them.
Yeah, that'd be another good history to put together, is all the boards that have pointedly disbanded themselves. The Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Board a few years ago. But anyway, we got like you said,
another time.
Like you said earlier, because there's never a dearth of things to talk about, and we could go for 3 hours on this, but we try to keep it to an hour and a half. So, and we're coming right up against that. So
yes,
I think we should table this for now. I actually was having a blast going through the archives on the Human Rights Commission last night, and I'm looking forward to getting some time to doing that completely. But I think for now, let's put a pin in it, and keep the focus on our lovely interview today with Josh. That was really great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to play that?
Bill, do you want to close out with a really funny clip of the Boston Celtics all trying to pronounce the name of the city we live in?
Worcester. Sorry. Worcester. I used to think it was Worcester, but it's Worcester.
I used to think it was Worcester, but it's Worcester.
How do you say this? Worcester. Worcester. Nice place.
Oh, of course. You know how RCES means ooh in Massachusetts. Worcester. It's a place. It's a city that's west of Boston.
Worcester. City.
Why were they even doing that? Was it like Worcester night? Worcester night at the fucking Garden?
I don't have any context for this at all, except like if you go to sporting events, the thing that will happen when they're on commercial break or like halftime or whatever is like they'll just do goofy stuff to like entertain you while you're sitting there. But yeah, I really don't know. And I'm gonna try to get on the beat to find out. But man, if there isn't like a more Worcester thing than being constantly amazed, frustrated, amused by the way that people say the name of our city. It's very funny. I will just report from someone who knows more about the current Celtics team than I do. Jason, that would be Jason Tatum, is the only one who got it right on the first try. Sam and Luke were absolutely confident in Worcester. Taylor thought it was a steak sauce.
Well, not too wrong.
Nope.
Not too wrong. That's great.
Hey,
what other? Imagine doing that at like in fucking like Buffalo, like asking like the sports team in Buffalo, hey, do you know how to pronounce Buffalo? The bit wouldn't work. You know, it really is it's our special sauce that.
It's our special sauce.
A name that is objectively not that hard to pronounce. Everyone has a really fun time mispronouncing it. And
yes,
it really plays into the thing we got to always remember about this place is that Worcester is a deeply unserious city.
Worcester is a city founded on Leap Day. Like, what more do you need to know?
Oh, man. So you know how Sean Connolly does the bad advice columns for Worcester?
Yes.
He was doing horoscopes, and I was like, oh, you should do a horoscope for like Worcester. And he looked up Worcester's birthday. Worcester's birthday is 2 days away from my birthday. That's June 14th, and mine's June 16th. And I was like, Sean, give me a read on that. And he goes, ooh, 2 Geminis. That's not good. You're compelled towards each other, drawn towards each other instinctually, but you hate each other so much. And I was like, damn, maybe astrology is real. Like, that about nails it.
Really makes you think. Yes,
really
that was Worcester's founding as a town. By the way, for the third time, because indigenous people burned it down the first 2 times, but the third time,
another history.
On June 14th, it stuck. Worcester was founded as a city on February 29th. I don't remember the year, but Leap Day.
Leap Day, you're right.
Unbelievable, man. You can't make this shit up.
So we're a city once every 4 years, and we're a town the other 3.
Yes.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it feels right, doesn't it?
When we fully succeed in our grand master plan to balkanize Worcester into 4 towns, like it should be, we will do it on leap year. We'll do it on the leap day of a leap year. And then we'll all pack up and move to West Shrewsbury. Anyway, I think that's a good place to leave it.
Hey, what else can we say?
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll be back next week, and hopefully with something lighter and funnier to talk about, because
we'll try.
I would appreciate that. If the news could stop for a little bit, that'd be great. If the news could just take a break, and I could catch my breath a little bit, that'd be awesome. But anyway, thank you for listening to Outdoor Cats. I hope you enjoyed our interview with Josh and his their social media will be in the links in the description. Get connected. Really good person to follow and stay abreast of to get better connected with the city. So
yes, indeed.
All right, Chris, I'll talk to you later.
Later, guys.
Doing the clutch, stomping like I'm up in Uber. They wanna make me like I'm canvas. You just me on a hate bottle water, but whatever. I'm pouring heavy on. I'm the kind of drawing cards that just wanna go steady on. Trust my gems, operates the bar, young phenomenon. I make a neo-Nazi. kamikaze, kamikaze, wanna firebomb. I'm the bomb ticket, you got your mom feeling me. Tell your man, chill on me, hey, goose, like literally. What it is, what is up, what is what it do, what it don't. What it is, what is up, what is what it do, what it don't. I'm getting like in my low fizz, and I stay getting life until I so high.